Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to have you all here as usual. Now we are at this stage of the course and text that we should be meditating while looking as we are receiving teaching or giving teaching, but we should be really meditating on the very practice. You will see very clearly tonight's teaching where the whole idea of developing the four definitive conducive factors for attaining path of preparation actually requires a good understanding of the meditation. So last week we talked about the importance of realizing perfection of wisdom by learning how to meditate on death, and only by learning to become familiarized with death, how it will make it a lot easier to understand emptiness of self. So I thought please refresh that understanding before we move on with tonight's teaching. And of course, before we do that, we will, as usual, we will do the refuge. We will renew and refresh our refuge in the teachings, and particularly the perfection of wisdom teachings. We have enough hearing of the suffering and its causes, now we should be a little more interested in the truth of the path that ends the suffering, that transforms the suffering, and by becoming understanding the practice. So with this understanding, we will do the refuge, and then of course generate loving kindness and compassion to sentient beings, many of whom have no sign of knowing that. They still are rejecting and denying suffering, and any suffering, and also at all. They just do anything to deny, to fight, to reject, to rebel. They have no beginning of understanding suffering. They don't want it, but they just where they reject and deny and despise makes very much the very suffering they don't want, but they're not conscious that it does. So that's why we have to, however many miles we might be ahead of every sentient being, we have to look back how many are still languishing in that situation, and there are no sign of showing any understanding of the suffering caused by this fundamental ego and so on and so forth. So we need to, when we say loving kindness, we need to develop compassion for the lack of this knowledge, for the obscured knowledge, and of course developing kindness to beings who are hungry and thirsty, and giving food to the hungry, and clothes to the one who's cold, and money to one who's destitute. It's also kindness, but these are anybody can do that. There's so many organizations that does that, and this, you wouldn't believe how many charitable organizations they would do that sort of thing. But when it comes to people who feel emotionally, intellectually disturbed and troubled, there's very little compassion that anybody has ever. Most people call it zero tolerance, zero compassion. So when we do the for immeasurable, we need to really reflect from the perfection of wisdom study student point of view. What constitute compassion? It's not this kind of compassion directed to sentient being and suffering anymore. The compassion to direct it to the objectless compassion and then looking at the very sentient beings who don't know that, and then how much impoverished are they because of that. So we need to, therefore, compassion. If there are 3 levels of compassion, what is the level of compassion that corresponds to perfection, wisdom, compassion? The random kindness you practice on the road is still good. We're not saying please don't. Please do them very, 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 very flowingly. But while we stay in comfort in our own situation, we need to upgrade the type of compassion, loving kindness, and we generate to those beings who are impoverished because they have got obscured knowledge. Education is supposed to be a right. Education is a right, I'm told. Everybody is entitled to education, but they're not getting the real education. People have degrees, double degrees, PhD, postgraduates, still not educated, really. Still not getting the real education from the what we call higher training of Dharma knowledge point of view. They're not getting to know the real wisdom. And of course we can't go and write to the education department for that, but but at least we who have glimpse of perfection wisdom teachings should employ that level of compassion when we are in this session, in this practice, possible whenever you can. So with this, please be meditative when we do these prayers as well as throughout the teachings. Oyenda Buddha Dhamma Vasanga Ajere Ladama Vavachu Ayehandala Ajare Vadavadu and Abu Dadama Zanga Adere Udaladama Bavaja Ayehandala Ashare Vada Udabe and Abu Dadama Zanga Adere Udaladama Bavaja Ayehandala Ashare Vada Undabe. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a powerful happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and cause of suffering. May they know apart from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near and far. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to the near and far. Last week we finished with the sentence talking about the speed of how quickly our lifespan exhausts and come to an end. So that means our lifespan, however many years you have lived, it's gone so quickly, hasn't it? haven't done very much, but but wrinkles and gray hair and and aches and pains and as we are as we're trying to catch chickens or something when we're walking around the in the house. So when we walk, I noticed that myself, so I'm not relating to that with any of you. So be mindful, how your limbs are doing and so on. I always collect my some waste from my skins dropping and ear drops and ear waxes and all this. Every week I do. I really compile them. This week I saw them quite substantial. And of course when I'm in the bath, when I rub my heels and knees, oh gosh, I'm sure a couple of ounces every time I'm in the bath. And usually it's me, but as soon as I go in the bath, I can shed them off quite quickly. Today I watch a short YouTube show. It's called "Most Scariest Monastery in Tibet." And this monastery is actually very near from where I was born. I didn't realize because I left Tibet, so I hardly see anything on my birthplace. And this man is very good. He's a tour agent. He's a Tibetan man. Speaks very good English, and he's got a YouTube channel. And then his YouTube. This latest one is called "Scariest Monastery in Tibet." And then all the skulls of everybody who dies are in the monastery, and they put on the wall, So father's skull, mother's skull, sister's skull, son's skull, and then it's like in the West, you reserve a site to bury your your body next to your husband or your grandmother or something like that, but very nicely paved and headstones, and you couldn't see any skull, Nice marble, gold engraved writings, and so. But there in Tibet, it's just the whole skull is kept. Okay. So that monastery has a huge wall where all this increasing number of skulls are just put in the wall, just very, very vivid, Yeah, so I was imagining what my skull would be like, Would anybody recognize that as they do in Zoom? No, one day there's no Zoomer. There's no Zoomer Lama Choedak. His skull is in Tibet. Maybe I don't think I'll be fortunate to be sky buried in Tibet. So that's part of the sky burial. It was very interesting. Anyway, so this is very relevant, I'm saying. And so let's move on to the topic of the importance of remembering death. If you're thinking of the inevitability of death and the day you die, day after you die, and the body decomposes and drops away all the limbs and And of course, if it's buried in the West, you wouldn't really know that. But it says, if this also does not convince the mind, think, life is impermanent, like the arrow shot by the expert archer. When the archer has, when the person has shot the arrow, how far the arrow will travel. There's no time the arrow will slow down or stop or change its mind. It's almost going. Incessantly going faster and faster and faster. It's only thing that can happen to the arrow is to fall, fall very quickly. So think of your life as an arrow shot by a strong archer, and we are the one who were the archer. We were very strong, by the way. We were very strong archer. And it is impermanent, like Vajrapani touching his thunderbolt from the summit of the mountain to the ocean floor. So that's the analogy of Vajrapani hurls his Vajra thunderbolt, and wherever from the summit of the mountain, and it travels so fast in the ocean, and it strikes directly on the thing that he actually hurls it to. It is impermanent, like the steep mountain waterfall. Yeah. If you look at the amazing cascades of mountain waterfalls, you can see, is there any time the waterfall is slowing or likely to return or likely to stay suspended in the air? No, it just goes, it's so quickly it drops down. Otherwise, it wouldn't call waterfall. Our life is a life fall. So death is life fall. Life is constantly falling. And it is impermanent, like a downpour of rain falling down from the sky. Sometimes when you fly high enough, you can see the rain is falling, but not above you, below you, and you can see the rain going down. It's just like there's no way that you can catch any of the drops and pull back. The rain drops gone too ahead of you. You can't catch any of the drop. It's all going down. It is impermanent, like the stick thrown in the sky will quickly fall on the ground. It's like the tennis player, that ball number 2, he hit the ball, and do you have time to say, I'll have a smoke first before I return? No. So you might not have enough step to get there on time. The ball fell so close on the line, and it's in. It's not out. So most of the time our life is always landing there so quickly. There's hardly any time to slow. It is impermanent, like emptying the pond after stopping the water flowing into it. If there's a pond in which water is falling into it, and if you just empty the pond itself first, and then you stop the rain, water that is flowing into it, they will be completely dry, completely dry. So our pond has already been emptied. Now we are about to stop the water going into it. So this is talking about all the merits that we have accumulated in the past life that has earned us maybe to live so long, and so now we've been exhausted all the time. So the water's run out. Now, if we go and stop the flow of any water coming in, which is not doing any meritorious deeds, which is not doing any Swaitara meditation or not doing anything to replace the fuel of the butter lamp, and of course then the water that was already in the pond is already dried, and now you are stopping any more flowing. So there will be no water in the pond. So Rongton used these beautiful analogies. And then there is no one who can top up the depletion of the water, So no one can top up the depletion. Your mother can't top up the depletion. Your relatives couldn't top up all the savings and top up the depletion of your lifespan. Your gurus and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can't top up the depletion of it. And your skill, your social work, they couldn't do it, So when the person's karma, merit, and lifespan, triple exhaustion comes, there's nobody can stop the depletion. It's nothing you do it. Even just by passing 1 or 2 days, one is getting that much closer to death. Don't think about sort of death is going to happen in a decade's time. Every day we are getting closer to it. And if the death is not coming towards us, we definitely are walking towards it without failure. Since impermanence is instantaneous, one can depart instantly, either from a sudden fall, or from drowning, or a collapse of a roof, or from stabbing. You see all this untimely, accidental, fatal death. Yeah, we just heard Changchup, who's our president. Her brother just got killed up the road. Killed in a car accident. It's finished. On Wednesday. He was going to go to Sydney to his fortnightly checkup, and then because you have to go to Sydney, you have to always do a COVID test. He went to do the COVID test so that he can travel to Sydney, but no, he didn't even make to his home, let alone go to Sydney. So that's like that, and he's not even 50. Like that, So people can die very abruptly, very quickly. And this is not to frighten people, or this is not to fearmonger people. This is just fact, But yet people don't think about the how uncertain the time of death is. One will turn purplish pale and fade with last breath, where on the final seat, the final seat, there's no more ability to change from this seat to that seat. you might go pale and on that very seat, and last breath, that's it. The mere sight of gray hair is a reality of impermanence. In short, there's nothing that does not condition death. Even listening to this teaching tonight for nearly an hour and a half, 2 hours, that is elapsing your lifespan. The 80,000 obstacles are always rampant. The 80,000 obstacles, 84,000 it's called 84,000 obstacles. The 84,000 obstacles are usually caused by lots of factors. The gods, nagas, yakshas, rakshas, garudas, probable humans, gandharvas, cannibals, demons, goblins, those who cause you to forget things, those who cause you to go mad. So there's a lot of yamas, a lot of there are about 80,000 kind of spirits who are actually always hovering, and who they can haunt, who they can snap, and whoever is giving rise to a lot of hatred, they're likely to get possessed by a male spirit, 21,000 type of male spirit. Those who have a lot of ignorance, they're more likelihood to become possessed by the naga spirits. Those who are a lot of in desire, they're more likely to be snapped by female spirit. And then there's another 21,000 triple combination of those spirits. So this is talking about what negative thoughts under influence of which of the root defilements we give, we could attract spirits and negative energy, malice, ill will, and so on. And spirit doesn't mean it might be some misunderstanding between you and your father or something like that, So it become a male spirit. In that case, it takes form of a male spirit, and your attachment to something, someone or something, can take form of a female spirit, and then it cause problem with someone who's female, or vice versa. So it talks about how can easily harm your body and snap your lifespan. 424 diseases also are constantly on the rise. 424 disease is very, very ancient idea, and these are interesting in the biggest Tibetan dictionary. When it talks about 424 diseases, it talks about four ways how the four types of 424 disease. 404 disease. They say that we have 101 illnesses that comes from labeling and then stuck in thinking who is who, always sticking with labels. So your attachment to labels, either it's your self status or labeling someone, and then you don't want to give them a good label, you want better. All labeling causes 101 diseases. So that's why silent is good. You don't put any labels. And then immediate conditions. Immediate conditions can also cause 101 diseases. You went in the cold just 10 minutes and came home and you got sick. You can catch an illness from you got pneumonia, or you got if a small condition there are 101 immediate conditions that can make you to contract illnesses. And then 101 diseases mainly due to elemental imbalances. Elemental imbalances. We talk about people who are lactose intolerant or this intolerant to that. It's not really it's intolerant to that particular thing. It's intolerant to the actual combination of the elements combinations. So they say according to the elements, earth, fire, water, and air combinations. So some people, because of the particular constituents in that particular food has too much water or too much fat or too much lactose, you are intolerant to that and you can catch disease. So because of elemental, 101 disease comes from that. And then 101 diseases are caused by the unresolved issues in the mind or with things, and that is bugging you. And that's almost stressing. We can call them stress in the West, but they actually make you sick, Cause of sickness are stress, Cause of sickness are not food, The food is just a condition. But actual cause of sicknesses are all three poisons, So the 404 diseases are comes from that. And then another, medically speaking, so that is more like a conceptually talking about how 404 disease comes from conceptual misunderstanding. And then another way of looking at it from medically speaking is that how these 404 diseases comes from what they call due to air. There's 101 air diseases, which means all the air disease, a lot of mental diseases. Air disease is always mental. Lung, they call lung. Lung means air or wind, So mainly just all the thoughts, all the ideas, all the ideas exchange of ideas. People talk to somebody's idea, they come sick. This is not coronavirus, this is talking sickness. And all of a sudden, their idea made you sick, made you to become angry, made you become upset or whatever, So, because you exchange the air, you breathe the same idea with the people. The coronavirus is very, very specific, isn't it? All the diseases are like that, Because you exchange the idea with somebody, and that idea, even you disagree with them, you got sick. If you agree with them, even more sick, because you get their delusion. You disagree with them, you become more sick. So the air is changing between you. So that's 101 diseases come from the air exchange. And then, so therefore your mind is pretty much troubled by that. And 101 disease is bile disease. And 101 disease is phlegm diseases. Another 101 disease is a combination of the air, phlegm, and bile disease together. And so that's the point of view. So this is from the point of view medically how Tibetan medicine talk about illness from the point of view of these three faults. They call this. They call the three faults: excessive air, excessive bile, excessive phlegm, not balance, and then that's that. Another is more like emotional. Emotionally speaking, it says that from hatred, the hatred increases your fire element, and if hatred increases your fire element, so even though you may give up fatty foods, which also gives rise to fire, but if you're angry, it defeats the purpose. You may have given up some food, but your anger actually makes more fire than the actual certain fiery food, chili or something like that. So anger gives rise to fire, and fire gives rise to bile, yeah, and therefore you get 101 disease from bile. And then ignorance gives rise to earth, which is earth. Ignorance very heavy. So people feel dull and very lazy. So they're sign of ignorant disease. Ignorant disease is phlegm disease, and because it's earth elements, very heavy, and usually a lower body disease also. Lower body disease can also. So of course, diseases are not necessarily localized in the different parts of the body. They all can travel all kinds of places, and likewise, jealousy gives rise to air disease. Too much air, and then the air can also, again cause imbalance and cause 101 disease. And likewise, attachment, desire can give rise to fire, water. If person who has a lot of desire, they have a lot of water retention disease, swelling and all of that, too much desire. And so in this way, all the 404 diseases can conceptually, can elementally, can emotionally, and also from the four elements we were talking about. So all in all, the 404 disease are the root disease coming from the three afflictions. So therefore, body is constantly subjected to be harmed and to be destroyed because of its vulnerability to these 84,000 obstacles as well as 404 diseases. The four great elements will also condition death. Four great elements. One can die from a fall from the cliff, drowning in the river, burning in the fire. Or the food is the sustainer of the food. Some die while looking for food. Looking for food. The guy who hit on Changchup's brother and crashed the car is actually delivering food in a big truck. He's trying to deliver food from I don't know where he's driving from to somewhere, to one of the big shopping centers. Yeah, instead of delivering food, he killed somebody. So it's like that. There's so you can, there's no way. No way you can say that I'm delivering food, but you deliver food, but you might die before that. Yeah, looking for food. Some die while looking for food or trying to deliver food. All the deliverers and Ubers. I don't know. They try to deliver some client, but then they never deliver the client. So, there's a lot of taxi drivers, truck drivers, and deliverers. They're supposed to deliver this dinner on the other side of the town, but they didn't deliver the dinner. They die, So there's the death can happen so easily, And working for food, the people die while trying to look for food or working for food. Business people die on the road while doing trade. Yeah, while doing trade, He didn't plan to die. He just wanted to go to bank the money in the bank, and he never made it to the bank. And some made it to the bank, but he was killed up in the hold-up. Have you seen all the stories? All these stories. So robbers get killed on the way. Robbers want to rob people, but they get killed on the road by police. And police themselves get killed by robbers. You wouldn't believe. The police who thought he was keeping the order in the world, put his knee too long on somebody's neck and killed the person that they wanted to control and put himself to this 18-year jail. You see, it's amazing. I mean, where are these things coming from? This is what we call 84,000 obstacles, all sitting there. Because you think the person that's under your knee really doesn't deserve to rise up properly. You just use your power. Power is so demonic. Thinking that you got power and you just do it. You didn't know what you were doing. So thieves die while on the act. One can die in a stampede. One can die from suffocation and not being able to swallow. Yeah, I know someone in Parliament, while having a dinner party, bow tie, he put a bow tie, went to a dinner party, he was going to table to toss the drinks. while he was eating and swallowing, cheering up, he just dropped, he turned pale and dropped it. You never know. You never know when and how. Where? and you will die. One Tibetan man, he went to Lhasa, I tell you this, because Lhasa, the Potala is very high, 13-story high. Nobody have such high buildings in Tibet. So one nomadic guy, come to Lhasa, he was so amazed by all the buildings in the first, and particularly when he saw Potala Palace, he couldn't believe it. Even the vultures were flying lower than the Potala, And then when he got in there, he was so happy, And then he climbed the steps one by step, and he got so high, and maybe on the 12th floor or something. And then he saw some people were looking down through the window of the Potala to the city and valley, and he did that, He went and looked, put his neck through this tiny window. The window is very tiny because it's so cold up there. He put his neck through the window, looked hither and thither. He enjoyed the sight, and then he tried to pull his neck back. He couldn't. The window was so tiny. The way he did this, he went out okay, but when he came back, he couldn't get back. And then he thought he has died. He thought he has died. Because Tibetans always talk about you can die at any time. So he told his friend, "Hey, my friend, I have died. I have died. I never knew I will die in Potala." I never knew I will die in Potala. He says, not a bad place, hey. But he says, the way I die is terrible. and his friend is waiting in the back, waiting in the room what he's talking about. He can't see him dead. He's still standing there. He says, no, you haven't died. He says, what do you mean? I can't get my neck back. I can't get my head back. He says. Yeah. Sometimes we meditate too much thinking we are dead. So that's quite interesting. So that's supposed to be his will, his will. To tell his family. He says, please tell them, it's not a really bad place to die. I'm dying in Potala, but it's a horrible way to die. So please tell my friends that I shouldn't they shouldn't worry me because I died in Potala. Of course he didn't die. And then later on his friend helped him to get his neck out. He was disappointed he didn't die. Because Potala is a very sacred place to die. So he actually thought maybe it's not a bad idea that I die in Potala. But then his friend helped his neck to come out. Then he was disappointed that he didn't die. Maybe. So that's what Shantideva, Nagarjuna says that. Shantideva says that too. No, Nagarjuna said in his letter to a friend, he says, it's wondrous that we can breathe in after breathing out. He says, it's really wondrous that I'm still alive because I breathed out and I couldn't breathe in. That means death means as simple as not being able to breathe again. So it's not that hard to die. Trying to swallow a whole apple will be a disastrous. So, especially have you got a bow tie on your neck, you should at least undo the buttons when you try to swallow a whole apple. The guy was really happy celebrating the party, the parliament, eating too much and toasting everybody, and one mouthful too much. Very easy to die. Cloth is to keep warm, but many die in the production line. Yeah, die from being stuck, being stuck somewhere, as I mentioned. Yeah, and suffocation. Yeah, suffocation. Yeah, quite a lot of people smoke inhalation. The fire didn't touch them. Fire didn't touch them. The building was on fire, but they all died of smoke inhalation. Yeah, that's right. So easy. People think they're going to be burned by fire. No, most people don't die in burning fire, They die of smoke inhalation. The fire itself was meters away, but the smoke just completely suffocated. Self is cause of staying alive, but one can commit suicide. Yeah, lots of people die of suicide. You wouldn't believe. Most people try to work very hard to live and not to die, but there are many who deliberately commit suicide by hanging, cutting, poisoning, or jumping. Many high cliffs and high bridges, it's usually, there's a lot of people go there not for the view, go there to jump, They just had enough. The height helped them to make the decision. Thus, there are nothing that does not condition death. So we should think like that. There are no sentient being who has averted death thus far. If you know anybody, would be Guinness Book of Record. That one who has averted death. There's no sentient being who will succeed to avert death. Yeah. There's no way to stop death. Birth is the cause and death is its result. Even the great seers who possess clairvoyance found nowhere that death does not occur. Even if all sentient beings become one's relatives, and if they were all willing to surround yourself, try to stop you from dying, they cannot stop you from dying. They can all just look you losing your last breath, and everyone becomes totally helpless. Half a dozen of them may be even doctors. Many of them may be even nurses. Many of them may be paramedics, but all can do nothing. The fast runner has no escape from it. Even the person who runs very fast, he cannot run away from the death. No medicine can stop. For one whose lifespan exhausted, nothing can stop. No mantras can avert. No deities can intervene. Death is the leveler. Thus, by meditating on death and dying, if one realizes the futility of all worldly activities and can think only on short terms, then this awareness will reduce grasping. So remember we were talking about the importance of emptiness, realizing perfection. And here Rongton is saying, now if you do the meditation on death, then that will help you to to loosen your grasping to world and things as real and permanent, because you will see yourself how empty, how nothing they are. Most people wouldn't know how death helps people to know nothing. They maybe have they may have a household. They maybe have a father who's the attention of everybody. Everybody loves him. He's a grandfather, or their grandchildren comes every week. But when the father dies, and then there's nothing happening. Then there's none of the family gatherings. Then everything stops. Why? Because it teaches them emptiness. So death is very powerful to consider emptiness. Yeah, when you don't even have aggregates. Because the consciousness is not in the aggregate. The aggregate are remains. We don't call my body my shoes. Even the shoes lose value. Even the shoes lose value. Horse lose value. The car lose value because the owner died. Not only the owner is empty, but all the value of his things are empty. They call death estate. They don't call real estate. They thought it was real until that owner died. When the owner died, the real estate become unreally so low. Son doesn't want to have, daughter doesn't want to have, neither does even the market people say, what is this death estate? This hesitate. They hesitate buying a death estate. Why? Because they might think the ghost might come and take over, which some do. So you can see why the death is so important, where catalyst to know how empty things are. When the person's consciousness leaves the body, all the 5 elements have nothing to hold together to prove it's permanent or self or even name. Like in Tibetan, it's a taboo to call the name of the deceased. It's very good. This is very good. If someone calls the name of the deceased, we straight away cover the mouth. Because remember, imputation, labeling is a big poison. They think the ghost of the deceased might come if you call the name, And that's why we only call the name of the deceased in Sur practice, just for the sake of teaching them to move on. But otherwise, if people call the name of the deceased, so therefore, the person dies. He's got no name, he's got no gender, his genital doesn't prove to be gender. There's nothing there. It's completely part of the remain. The whole body is remain. From even the lovely ginger hair, all remain. Long arms, all remains. Huge torso, all remains. There's not a single part of the body, him or her or it, is nothing. It's all remain. So by meditating on the death, one will realize, easier to understand the emptiness of self and all the worldly activities, all the fights, all the arguments, all the hurts and pains, all are so useless to be worrying about who did what to whom. It's complete waste of time when you can understand emptiness of self. And therefore, think only in short terms if you understand the death, and this will slowly make you to not have a long-range attachment to the idea of me and I, will reduce the grasping. Therefore, so this is overriding importance to arouse renunciation from the self. We call renunciation from the self is realization, leads to realization of the emptiness of self, So meditate on this at the start of each meditation session, So meaning always meditate on death. and its certainty, and how uncertain the time might be, how nothing and no one can assist you to live, but if they're fortunate enough, they may see you die, but if they're not fortunate, they will die before us. We will see them die, like my sister-in-law, who was caring for my mother, 95-year-old. My sister-in-law was barely 50, that 45-year gap, Of course, the young, she is the carer of, if my mother, who's 95. But the carer died before the cared. So there's no guarantee because of age. Amazing. And then my mother, who when she's now, by that time she was losing her mind, yeah. And she calls her daughter, she calls her daughter-in-law her daughter, so that makes it easier for her. She doesn't really know she has lost her daughter-in-law, She says, "Where did my daughter go?" She doesn't believe she's dead because she doesn't know. So you wouldn't know whether the carer dies before the cared. Amazing. Why? Because there's no guarantee. So therefore meditate on each start of your meditation, always on death. And also meditate on every single when there's a big problem. Think of the death. And that will help you to completely make peace with the problem. You will drop fighting. You will drop, spending things for it for the sake of name or gain or little, all these things. You will see the waste. And therefore, it will help you to let go. Lots of people's conflict, litigation, is because they don't think of death. It's not the question of who is right and who's wrong. Death will take care of both of you. So think of death, and you wouldn't put a good fight for nothing. What's the benefit of the fight? You will know. That's why it says, always meditate on this topic before doing meditation on the perfection of wisdom. Perfection of wisdom. So don't jump into meditating on the emptiness of self, emptiness of phenomena, or things like that. First meditate on impermanence, death, then do the meditation on the definitive discriminative factors, which are four. Yeah. So now we will talk about them. So instruction to now how to meditate. So that's the preliminary. Preliminary for that is you first do the refuge and the triple gem. After doing the meditation on death, you take refuge and then do the generation of bodhicitta like we were doing at the session, and cultivate the altruistic motivation to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. That one verse we say at the beginning is very succinct, written by Atisha. It says, in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment reach. So that's the refuge. By giving and the like, by virtue of giving and the like, may I reach Buddhahood to aid all beings. So that's bodhicitta. So you should minimum say that verse which combines both refuge and bodhicitta together for the benefit of others. Sit cross-legged in posture, with the hands in a meditative posture, and then do not lean the body on anything. Sit upright. So now this is talking about meditation and emptiness, yeah? Meditation and emptiness. Because this meditation on generation, meditation on the heat and peak and so on, the four definite discriminative factors, you need to meditate on emptiness, yeah? All phenomena, as soon as they appear, were previously established as non-existing through discourse, contemplation, and meditation. So you have already heard them. You heard all things. The self is empty of inherent existence. All phenomena is merely labeled, and they do not truly exist even iota. They are all dependently originated, but they do not independently, unitarily, and autonomously exist by themselves. Thus regard them, thus regard all things, including self, your brother, the problem you have with them, your attachment to something, your failure in life, your success in things, all of these, you should see them as all as dreams and illusions and reflection of the moon in the water, like a magical show and like a mirage and rainbow. Use any of these analogies that helps you to elucidate how illusory and how unreal all things are. Now, this is very important. I mean, you could be doing this meditation while I'm talking. Having realized that all objects upon which the attention has been fixed without distraction, that lack any intrinsic nature from its own side, through the power of the wisdom of perfection of wisdom, one should meditate in the manner of unifying calm abiding and special insight together. Now, this is exactly what we're talking about. A person who has done calm abiding, say the path of accumulation, doing all the preliminaries and so on, because when you're doing calm abiding on the path of accumulation, you're mainly doing to purify the negative karmas through the ngondro practices, yeah? And then when you really have sufficient intellectual and conceptual understanding of emptiness, then you actually have the ability to retreat yourself somewhere quiet and peaceful, give quality time and contentment, not attached to activities, interaction with people, not worldly activities. When you really can then comprehend the meanings of these teachings, and then when you really stay in meditation, one should meditate unity of calm abiding and special insight. The calm abiding is sitting still and observing the stillness. Observing, just sitting still and then silent with serene breathing and whatever technique you use. This is the calm abiding. But once that is just the outer form of them. But inside the meditation of the should be emptiness. Should be meditated on the emptiness of all things. Yeah? And so therefore Rongton assumes we are all meditators, okay? I think we are, aren't we? I mean, we came to know each other only because everybody wants to learn meditation. So we are all meditators, We're all meditators. We should be meditator on emptiness from now onwards. Not talk about blue flower and counting the breath. We had enough, done enough, long time. Now we should talk about how to meditate on the emptiness, unity of karma by patience. If the concentration is obscured by dullness, so that's exactly. So from here onwards, tonight Rongton gives very beautiful instructions how to deal with dullness and agitation. Because when people are able to retreat somewhere quiet, away from job and activities, and they really are that much disciplined to do that. But that's the worldly ability, freedom from those. But one that can greatly hinder their progress is dullness and agitation. And, of course, laziness and all the rest. But some people have no laziness. They really getting up early in the morning, doing all the sessions, doing all the practices, like lots of devout. I've seen so many people so devoted. They'll do many millions of mantras. They really have been following the teacher's instructions by the book, getting up so early and do all the mantras, do all the retreats. Yeah, but they still can miss the point if they don't know how to deal with the subtle dullness and subtle distractions. Subtle dullness. It's not the gross dullness you're talking about, or gross distractions you're talking about. Subtle dullness. So here, Rongton talks about how to deal with them. He said, if the concentration is obscured by dullness without any clarity, Meaning you're doing the sadhana, your mantra is going, sometimes not as well as you. One should then resort to dispel the dullness. There are 7 methods to dispel dullness. Okay? So this is most thorough instruction on dullness. I've taught on this in some 10-day retreats early in the beginning, but I use this very material. But even if some of you attended those days, I was teaching directly from the text without having carefully translated. So now we have a text translated. There are 7 methods to dispel dullness. First one is changing the support. Changing the support means that if one feels dull when meditating, one should change your posture, physically, verbally, mentally, the 3 supports of meditation. So therefore you should change. You shouldn't be too rigid in one posture, or you shouldn't be just always remain silent, even though you remain silent, but you can still maybe do some chanting here and there or something like that, or mentally try to just to support. So changing your physical, verbal, mental orientation. So that's the first technique. First technique to remedy dullness. Second is using external objects. Yeah, because when people meditating, they're so much into themselves. They become almost disconnected with the world, outside world. So when one feels dull, one open one's eye wide and look, and follow specific object while recollecting clarity. So that means you try to engage your senses, like eye, vision, organ. Look at some flowers or the particular design of the carpet or something like that. Just focus on that, and try to follow the specific object while recollecting the clarity, the conventional clarities first. Second is follow the thought of dispelling and recollect it, And third is watch repeatedly until dullness is remedied. So this second technique is to remedy dullness is that you don't become so introverted, but do externalize by looking at objects and follow the thought about the object, and whether you want to dispel a particular thought about the object and move on to something. Try to make it very clear, because your mind is very, very dull. It isn't engaging with things at all because you're so downtrodden, so to speak. And therefore, watch that repeatedly until the dullness is remedied. Number 3 is that expanding the horizon. Seek ways to broaden the horizon and place of meditation. So that when, say, you're meditating in a tiny room, maybe a cave, it could be quite claustrophobic, And therefore dullness could be caused by this limitedness of the space, that you are so narrow. So therefore, to remedy dullness, you should broaden the horizon and the place of meditation to increase clarity of your mind. And so that's the kind of expanding the horizon of the space. And second is widening the mental perspective, is to shed light on the form of the object meditation. Try to think more creatively on the object of meditation. So the dullness or very sluggishness of the mind is shaken by creatively thinking, shedding light on the form of the meditation. And third is widening the physical horizon by stretching and correcting and moving the postures. So you might get up and stretch your legs, and do some yoga, do some yantra yoga if you know, prostration, or whatever few things like that. Because you could be so sitting so long, and that could be claustrophobic and can cause dullness. So that's called expanding the horizon. Third is inducing recollection. Fourth remedy is to inducing recollection. This is, of course, to remedy dullness. When dull, empower the mind through recollection. See whether your mind could do recollection if you're dull. By recollecting the object, this is the object of meditation, it will help to enhance clarity. So try to increase affinity with the object of meditation to enhance its clarity. Second is by recollecting the instruction, like we are talking about, it will help to develop the antidote to the dullness, to the claustrophobic, to the kind of sluggishness, whatever it is. Try to remember what is the antidote. And the third is by recollecting the form aspect, it will help to dispel the obstacles. Yeah. So if you look at the remedy, can the remedy has some kind of conceptual understanding what the remedy is really remedy? So you have to have the clarity of what remedy is. If you recollect what the remedy is, and then if you have the remedy, the obstacle will be remedied. So that's inducing recollection, number 4. Fifth one is the holding the autonomy of the mind. This means one should be creative to think many thoughts. Because if you are not having many thoughts, you can't focus on the object, your mind gone dull, then basically you're losing autonomy of your mind, as you're not allowed to think creatively. So that's why one should be creative to think many thoughts. Sometimes think of some pleasant object. When you say, I'm going to think some pleasant object, you can think and then at times think of some unpleasant object, exactly opposite. just to check whether your mind is working or not. And then sometimes think of indifferent object. Try to alternate these three so that you're not too sluggish or too dull. Yeah, that's the fifth one. Sixth one is searching for ordinariness. Searching for ordinariness is if the consciousness is dull, I think mostly dull anyway. You shouldn't ask dull. When you notice the consciousness is dull, then leave the meditation object. Leave the meditation object for a while and deliberately let the mind be in an ordinary state. Don't try at all. So that is called searching for ordinariness. Because we become so fixed as if I should be doing this, and that overexertion may have caused the dullness. So suspend all of that and think you can just let the mind be totally ordinary, and deliberately let the mind be free from that and think of just something totally ordinary. That's called searching for ordinariness, sixth one. Seventh one is staying engaged in recollection. So that is, when dull, one should do 3 creative things. Do creative things by changing the physical posture. Yeah, remembering that you have to, you know how to do physical posture. Say creative things such as chant, sing a tune from sacred verses with profound meanings. Yeah, so you're verbal. You're basically accelerating your verbal. And then third is think creatively by letting the mind out to engage with the sense doors. Yeah, let the mind become engaged with sense doors. Maybe go and grab a lemon and eat that. Usually you might not put a lemon because you put honey with lemon and just so that you have the benefit of honey with the backing of a lemon. No, this time just have some lemon. So that you usually wouldn't just eat so much lemon. Why? Just why? This is to be creative, Letting the mind to engage with sense objects, Maybe touch the fire for a while, Have you touched the fire? Maybe you don't touch the fire. You just put the fire there and you sit there and then enjoy the radiation of the fire. Maybe you can just go and nearly touch the fire. It's very interesting. You're dull or not. And remedy dullness with these 7 essentials. So these are very important for people who stay long-term retreat in order to remedy dullness. So that's 7 remedies to dullness. Then there are 7 remedies also to remedy agitation. So this is subtle agitation, subtle agitation, subtle excitement. This means that, like, say you are meditating on emptiness, but yet you got too many thoughts, and you're agitated. You can't focus. So agitation means distraction here. So these two has 7. First is called tracing the footprints. First, tracing the footprints has 3. Tracing by counting. Counting. Firstly, tracing by counting. That means count how many times the mind has been agitated. You just tell the mind, oh, this is 3rd time. You won't be allowed to do another one. Tracing how many times you have been agitated. That's the one. Tracing by counting. Second is tracing the object. Second is identify the object which has agitated your mind. Oh, my cat has agitated me 3 times. so recognize what is the object that is agitating you. What is the object? It's very good, So you you become more because you're distracted. You want to know how many distractions, by what, and how many times. There's a scientist writing the logbook of his meditation. I think Buddha was a first scientist. Remember, he was writing the logbook of his. There's a Tibetan monk. He said he was distracted by his gown. The sheepskin gown. And he was wondering how many hairs that his gown had. and his meditation was thriving. It's totally one-pointed on the gown, no other object took place. But then in a debate he lost. After the meditation, when he debated his friend proved that he has as many gowns as hairs. It's called finding many in one. He was supposed to find nothing in everything, but he found many in one. We're supposed to find the emptiness of everything. He found so many in one gown. Yeah, you wouldn't believe how good what a lot of time meditators have. They don't have any time for the rest of the world. They're seeing so many gowns in one gown. when you do the tracing, these days, Victoria government is very busy tracing, I tell you that. And New South Wales and Victoria completely tracing. They're doing the tracing. Very agitated, very agitated by the coronavirus. And now they're tracing. Everybody is a suspect, Who you? Oh, you're one of the close contact. Oh, yes. Exposure site, yes. So you can see how agitated our governments are. The nurses are, some of the health professionals are. They all become good meditators, You can see all the health professionals, all the Australian government become good meditators. Yeah, tracing by counting, tracing the object. Yeah. Then third is check and ascertain whether the agitation is concerning past, present, or future. To make it more interesting, you're agitated by something, but you want to distinguish whether it's a past or future or present. To make it a little bit more clear. So that's the first one, tracing the footprints of your thought. This is talking about footprints of your thoughts. Because if you were if you had a COVID-19 test and you returned positive, they will tell you, where did you go yesterday? Where did you go after that? Where did you go after that? You spent like that. You have to tell your consciousness, where did you go? Oh, where did you go? You lost my concentration. You went all those places. You better not do this. Come back. You can see. Meditators have lots of fun. Second is to going beyond the object. Second remedy, going beyond the object. This also has three parts. Going beyond the object, going beyond the object refers to first, as no object is found by searching it with the transcendental awareness, because there's no object, remember? When you're meditating on emptiness, there's no object. You can't say, I'm meditating on emptiness. If you said it, it's inexpressible. Remember that. See, you forgot it's inexpressible, and it's also non-objectification. So there's all these things you got to observe. And no object is found by searching it with the transcendental awareness. Subjective agitation naturally diminishes. See, this is transcending, going beyond the object. So that's going beyond it. Second is going beyond the thought. As no thought is found by searching it, agitation naturally pacifies. Oh, what a good outcome. You don't have to get rid of something that doesn't exist. Third is going beyond the antidote. Going beyond the antidote. By examining the antidote, agitation itself pacifies. Who needs antidote for nothing? You don't need antidote. No path, no cessation. That's right. Thus, by not finding the object of agitation, agitated thought, and no antidote to remedy, the agitation necessarily doesn't exist. See, this is meditating on the transcendental wisdom of emptiness. But if you don't understand emptiness, how could you do progress karma, body meditation, deity yoga? You don't stand a lot of chance. So emptiness is the highest remedy. That's in the Heart Sutra. It's the pacifier of all suffering. It's a mantra that is equals to unequal. It is not the false, it's the truth. It is the real one. It's the real one. It's the real one, Which one? Don't ask me. So then you can your meditation is really no meditation. You have no real problem there. What are you talking? No problem. I thought you were talking remedy. No remedy. That's taboo as well. So that's called going beyond the object, let alone the thought, let alone the antidote. Very profound. Number 3. Number 3 is called whipping. Whipping it up. It is engaging with the object of agitation, and note how former thought agitate the latter thoughts. If there's no former and latter thoughts, there's no agitation. So you should try to find the gap between the former and the latter, and there's no agitation. But you're trying to tie strings with them. You try to sew them as a patchworker, Don't try to patch things. Let everything suspend by themselves, with nothing, no link with the former to the latter. So, it is just that's just the description of this antidote. It's engaging with the object of agitation, and note how former thoughts agitate the latter thoughts. Being able to become conscious that former and latter thoughts comparison It's comparison that is the problem. It's a comparison almost cancels the one by the other. So this has three. Physically whipping like that, verbally whipping like that, and mentally whipping like that. Physically, doing whatever strong physical movement of the limbs in the retreat. Okay, don't just sit there in the box all the time. Get out of the box. Maybe break the box. Maybe they break the box. Maybe tear down your shrine for a change. See what's going on. I'm joking on the analogy. Don't do it literally. Maybe you can. Who knows? Who knows? That's what quite a lot of Kadamba monks did. When he was meditating, he was meditating, and then his benefactor was visiting. When his benefactor was visiting, he got up quickly. His discursive thought said, "Get up and put things really nicely attractive and appealing, so that your benefactor can see all this is a good order." So he usually, maybe he doesn't do it. Maybe he doesn't do nearly neatly and tidily as much. So he was a really good Kadamba monk. There's a story wouldn't feature otherwise. He was always checking his intention, and he wasn't taught about this, but he was always try to arrest the selfishness and try to promote the selflessness. That was his main training. When he was busy doing that, he had no time to tidy up the room. He was doing so intense practice, so intense. But all of a sudden he remembered his benefactor was coming. Then he remembered that, then I have to do things, tidy up things nicely, looking that everything looks order. Then he was arranging the shrine, and everything looks very beautiful, nicely arranged, and like that. And he went out and came in and looked. It looks very good, and he thought, that will make them happy. But he said, this is not practice. This is hypocrisy. then just the benefactor came, he pulled down the shrine down, left everything in a mess, and then waited the benefactor to arrive. When the benefactor arrived, then they said, "What's wrong with you? Something awful happened." He says, "No, this is really the way I am." This is where I actually am. So it's very, So then the devotee and benefactor didn't make any wrong with it. They thought that's good. He's carefree. His carefree dignity is called. So he's in retreat. He doesn't mind. He didn't try to impress us by tidying it up. He just left as it is. And they were more inspired with that. So it's like that. You would never know. Sometimes you have to wake yourself up. So that's what I'm saying. Physical movements of limbs that will exhaust the force of agitation. Yeah. Because you're so agitated usually. You do this and then you think nothing, and always anxiety and agitation. Agitation is a bit stronger word. Could be sometimes just anxiety. Oh, this isn't right. Oh, I didn't do that right. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Oh, no. All these hopes and fears and just constantly battling. So that's the physical one. Verbally whipping should be performed by chanting or singing any verses of Tathagata out loud to cause the exhaustion of verbal energy. Just exhaust yourself by chanting all the prayers and read the books out loud, and that will exhaust your agitation. Mentally whip by transferring the agitated thoughts to other objects to cause exhaustion of the force of agitation. So if you become agitated by focusing on one object meditation, just focus on a completely new another object of meditation. Instead of the blue flower, meditate on the fire or water or whatever. So try to whip yourself. That's the third antidote. The fourth antidote is bringing onto the path. This is transforming the agitation into steadiness of the meditation. This also has three. First, bringing onto the path by engaging the mind to a very clear object. So the object that you meditate on, try to develop affinity with the object to increase the clarity of the object to meditate. Sometimes you could be focusing on one object meditation, but there's no clarity, there's no inspiration, there's no affinity, there's no attraction to that object. So try to meditate on something fairly random and then try to develop a new affinity. And that's why we have so many deity yogas, so many mantras, so many various things to focus your mind on. So that's that. Second is bringing into the path by investigating the thought itself. It's not so much you may think it's the object, but then what your thought about the object? Investigate the thought by investigating the thought itself. So that's try to bring you, because the more you investigate the thought, the less you can see the thought as anything but nothing. Because when you don't investigate the thought looks real. You got to act on it. You got to call to a friend because you had a thought. That's uninvestigated thought. But if you investigate thought, there is nothing there. The investigator finds that there is no thought. It's uninvestigated. They look so substantial and so real. Third is bringing into the path by examining the nature of the antidote. So they are very similar, but very fine differences. Now the fifth is the rejection of the creator. The last conscious awareness, the antidote, is preventing the agitated conceptual mind. So that's the rejecting the creator means when your mind, when the last time you were conscious of something, then the antidote is to prevent agitated conceptual mind. And this has three. First is rejection of the appearance of the object, because appearance of the object, it looks like object is appearing independent of your thought. So therefore you are rejecting the object being the creator of the object. Second is rejection of the subject in the mind of the object. So therefore you are rejecting the rejection of the subject in the mind of the object. Because you can't have a subject in the mind of the object independent of the object. Because of that, there is no inherently existing the subject in the mind. And the third is rejection of both. Rejection of both object and subject. So you're rejecting the creator that is a object, creator that is object. So that's non-duality. Neither the object nor the mind. Because you might think, creator is my mind, the object doesn't create. That's a mind-only school. That's not really advanced. It's not seeing even mind itself as a subject. You could not see, trace, and nail it down. Not finding the mind itself, therefore, is the rejection of both the object and subject. So the subject is no less real than no more real or less real than the object. So they both are equally rejectable, do not exist. But until you do that, you still have the mind that exists. So that's go back to square one. So these are sometimes people do not have this need of using these remedies because they aren't meditating advanced enough on the notion of self or phenomena or this or that or he or she or usually our mind doesn't even see those. They are a cause of your agitation. And of course, when you're meditating, this level of, this is of the heat level, yeah, heat of the first of the four stages of the heat means there is a lot of maybe spiritual anxiety. You don't need one, do you? Most people wouldn't ready for spiritual anxiety. There's enough anxiety. They don't need anxiety whether they are about to realize emptiness or not. But it's quite interesting, really. It almost makes you to go to some level of abnormal state of mind. We can go crazy because that's what the wisdom is. Wisdom is so crazy, and stupidity is so real. When stupidity is so real, wisdom is very crazy. you you don't have much. You don't have anyone you can talk to because they don't know. They don't know what the hell you're talking about. and most of the Mahasiddhas of India is because they became really, they didn't fit. They didn't fit anywhere. And they become Mahasiddhas. And they didn't also have any fear. They also have no hope. They don't have any preference. They also didn't have any preference whether they look at the freshly served meal or just freshly dropped droppings. They don't see anything in either of them. Really, this is called ronyum. It's one taste. Ronyum, one taste. Means he wouldn't taste either of them, He wouldn't say, "Oh, I have the freshly cooked food, not that one. Come on, please take that away. You're so disgusting. Take that away." See, again, comparison happening. I know one Tibetan nun. She loved to go to Mother Nature and pick up droppings, and she eat them. She's real Mahasiddha nun, amazing nun. I met her only briefly. That was in 1981. Wow, they call her cemetery nun. She lives in cemetery. She lives in the cemetery where they take the dead bodies. And she eats quite a few of them, and yeah, she's amazing. She's completely beyond the normal thing, A great yogini. And when she does some prayers, and when people come to her, she heals them like instantly. She just touches them briefly, or says some prayers, and blow them, or she tears her. When people come for blessing, sometimes she give them a slap, other times she blows on their face, other times she tears her cloth, small piece of cloth, makes a little knot and give them as amulet. You wouldn't believe how everybody got healed by her if they got to know her, because she's so unassuming. You will never see that she can heal anybody. She's wearing rags, and she's got this prayer wheel that is bigger than, I don't know. It's so heavy. All the mantras that she knows, she rolled them up and tied on them. That's what she carries wherever, because she said, "I don't have time to recite one by one, so I recite all together." She's very eccentric, very, very, very amazing. Yeah, so she's definitely transcendental. There's no doubt about that. That's what people call her cemetery nun, because that's where she lives. Wherever she comes to town, she says, "Where's the cemetery?" So that she can stay the night there. And it doesn't mean it's necessarily covered or anything. As long as the cemetery, she's happy with that. She do whole night there, And sometimes she tried to look for some remains, and she would eat them. She's just totally gone beyond. Because she's probably have realized this one taste level, Anyway, that's very rare, so there's no danger we are going to do that. Okay, next, sixth one is recognizing the nature. This is seeing the nature of agitated mind. So the antidote is to the agitation is meditating on the nature of the agitation. And this has three. Seeing the transient nature of the appearances, Transient nature of the appearances. And that's one. Second is seeing the uncontrived ultimate nature. The ultimate nature is uncontrived. It is what it is. You don't have to do anything. The third is seeing how the mind is engaged with the propensities. So what you see is not what is there. It's all your propensities. So therefore the agitation is just by nature your own propensities. And if you don't have propensities, if you don't engage with propensity, there is no propensities. Propensities are engaged, regurgitation of one's own actions, thoughts, and therefore the nature of agitation is only your propensities. So when you do not re-engage with propensities, that's the nature of the agitation, because it doesn't exist. Because when you don't engage, then the propensity does not exist. So that's the sixth. And the last one is the seventh. Changing the object, it's called. Changing the mind to shift to another object away from the object of agitation. So that's when you have lots of agitation, see whether you could de-link your mind from the object of agitation. This is three. If unclear means because your meditation is now agitated and you couldn't really shift it to an external object, shift your mind to a chosen object of agitation, so that your agitation with the weather or with the thing is not cultivated but try to fix your mind on something else. If clear, shift it to an internal object. First to the external object, then to internal object. Internal object may be your organs, maybe your parts of your body, or your thoughts, or your memories, or something. Or just think of when was that? 1974, July 1st. What did you do? Straight away. Something like that. You try to bring your mind somewhere. Why? You're trying to change the object. If you can change the object, that means the agitation with the previous object, agitation induced by a previous object will be de-linked, and you will therefore de-link from that, and then you are able to clearly think of an internal object. Third is, if mind stays settled, shift it so that it does not exceed the session duration. Even your mind does stay very settled, try to shift it to some other object randomly so that it doesn't exceed the session duration. Quite a lot of people become excited. I'm doing so well on this. I'm going to spend a bit more time. It's grasping. One is developing grasping to that. They say short, sharp, and repeatable, frequent. They don't say long in a favorite session, long favorite session. So you should really shift that. Because if the mind stays settled, doesn't mean, I'm glad now my mind is settled, I don't have any agitation. Subtle agitations are like that. Subtle agitation doesn't occur like agitation. You get excited. I'm doing so well. Now I can stay with this. But you should whisper to yourself, that is subtle agitation. Subtle agitation. Nobody whispers to you when you are excited in a good meditation, saying, that's a subtle agitation. It doesn't mean you should doesn't mean you should continue, but you just shift to another object. See whether you could fittingly shift your focus on something else, and so that you start a fresh, short, sharp, fresh new session, new subsession within the session, so you don't get too over engaged with one nice session, so that it does not exceed the session duration and your attachment to it. See, this is exactly what we call the definitive discriminative factor of heat, because you're constantly checking, you're constantly discriminating whether you need to trace the objects of the distraction, or the number of times, or the thought about it, or the antidote. So you're actually checking, investigating, discriminating the object, the thought, the antidote. That's what this is the heat. When we're talking about the example of rubbing two sticks, getting heat. When you do this, then the mind is so wakefully alerted in discerning the lack of independent or inherent existence, not only of the object or self, but even the thought, even the object, even the antidote to the problem. All of that, you are using these various remedies so that you do not develop excitement. I mean, you can't prevent developing excitement, but when you do develop excitement, you got to see that now you have to learn to remedy that, because if you get excited thinking I'm realizing this, then you develop grasping as well. I mean, most people might enjoy a little bit for a few weeks. They don't want to invoke these Rongton's 14 remedies too early, because that's why you don't discuss these very often. This was for various studious practitioners when they really wanted to deepen the quality of their discernment of emptiness, not only in discussion and thought and conversation, but in the actual meditation. How do you know that you are remedying this? Then there's a lot of rapture. There's a lot of rapture in the physical refinement. Your body feels light. Your senses are very, very happy. They are not craving or desiring any gross senses and objects or things or people. Or there's none of these sticky mind and thought. There's an amazing sense of kind of lightness, the lightness in the sense faculties. And this is a kind of precursor to some kind of clairvoyance. Your five sense organs, five senses become very, very bright. You might taste something you have never tasted like that, even you've been eating that food so long. But you're in that kind of meditation, you could taste such a great distinctively, and yet that taste is not truly existing, but farmers doing it, transporters carrying it, and processors working it, and you cooking it, and so on. And then you had this amazing interdependence of the production of that taste, that you not only, of course, you can taste those things, but usually our taste is very much like a cow munching grass. It's just another munch, another mouth, another munch, like that. And that's why the great yogis, when they reach to the level of realization, they don't need gross food so much. When they have achieved the path of path of preparation, they have a lot of physical lightness, pliancy they call it, physical pliancy and mental pliancy, a lot of joy, and this joy is not kind of subtle excitement, that this is really the joy that does not turn into sorrow, So therefore, there's a lot of gratitude, and there's no ill will. There's no hate. There's absence of craving. There's so little tiredness, and no doubt. All the impediments, normal impediments in meditations, have become replaced by their by the lack of. And so the lightness, the physical pliancy, mental pliancy we discuss in calm abiding is now happening. Because when the calm abiding is joined with the preparation, special insight meditation, the emptiness, in Tibetan Buddhism, special insight is emptiness. It's not the special insight is not some kind of watching the sensation on the tip of nostril. It's not. I mean, everybody will have a sensation tip of nostril if you put a fire over the nose. That's not the problem. It's a vipassana is realizing the emptiness of self. It's not some 10 days quiet and silent watching the tip of nostril. It's calm abiding. Those are all calm abiding. They just call vipassana. And not even calm abiding, maybe just relaxation technique. Most people doing 10-day meditation, they just want to stop talking. They just want to have somewhere quiet, and they just gives them a little bit of peace they don't get at all. But if they don't have any teachings, it's not even calm abiding. It's just a form of a relaxation. Just switch off all the phone, and no talking, no eye contact, which vipassana techniques have been promoting for so many years, and they actually did a very good work, because that's how this whole hectic modern 21st century people life is so hectic. They really at least need to put everything aside, have just a silence and quietness. And no wonder why they don't have so many teachings or religious practice and so on. Most people just don't have any room for those things. They just want a complete space. They just want a space. They just want that. But of course, people like me who've been in the West so long and looking at it, I admire their job. If the 10-day special insight meditation, they call special insight vipassana, hasn't been taught, not many people will have been enticed to do any meditation. They may call whatever, but it's still relaxation. Then slowly they distinguish, that's just a relaxation meditation. They're basically doing dull abiding. Dull abiding. Dull abiding, silence, dull abiding, very good. But they get something out of that. They feel some kind of therapy, and then they say maybe they need to go a bit further into that. Then they may meet genuine teachings of the Dharma, and maybe not too much in a cultural kind of a thing. It would be good, But quite a lot of them don't get that too much. Not so much of the authentic meditation. They get so much other things and other stuff. But once people know how the need to unify calm abiding special insight, you can see that insight meditation is perfection of wisdom in Mahayana's terms. We don't mind. Insight is Tibetan word is called lak tong. Very amazing word. It's not. They don't see the lak tong. Lak means extraordinary. Tong means seeing. Seeing extraordinary, which is seeing emptiness of self. Extraordinary. I don't exist. and therefore no problems. Oh, so good. They never existed. Everything's wrong. Yeah, everything's wrong. You never thought you thought they were all so real. Then nothing is real. They completely poorly told stories. They don't exist at all. What a wonderful. That's extraordinary seeing. Laktong. And of course, that's why when I heard the word they used, the vipassana, I was hoping some teaching on emptiness will be discussed. But most people are not ready to hear that, because emptiness is not suitable for most people's ears. They just need silence and quiet and free meal. And someone who will switch off the phone, take away the car keys, which is good. It changed lots of people and gave them, it became the appetizer for Buddhism. Appetizer for Buddhism, and it did a lot of good work. But now, after 50 years, don't you think it's about truth should come out? What is special inside? Because life is not long, to do the nose, to the sensation, the tip of nostril all the time. So, perfection of wisdom teaching. This is what Rongton's teaching. We were talking. We have been going through three terms. Today is the end of the third term, and then now it's actually beginning to talk about the how to actually meditate on the peak of heat of the path of preparation. His Rongton concludes here. We will conclude here this tonight. These 14 remedies are to be applied with every level of these three successive meditations: peak, heat, climax, and forbearance and excellent Dharma. All of these meditations. So I don't know whether we can distinguish the difference or not. Actually, you can. There's a lot of qualities that distinguishes the, for instance, the peak and first two. The heat and peak goes in pairs, and forbearance and special and excellent Dharma goes in pairs. So these four divided into two has two sets of 5 qualities, what we call the 37 factors of enlightenment, 5 what we call 5 faculties, and 5 powers. 5 faculties belong to the heat and peak meditation. That's called faculties because it opens your 5 senses and give you some kind of contaminated clairvoyance. You can almost see what will happen if I say this, if I do this. This amazing sense of discerning and understanding, even though it's relative, but still very, very useful. And this level is still nothing realizing emptiness itself. This is just a preparation. This is just connecting to the path of preparation, which hasn't happened yet. Path of preparation, path of seeing is Hlaktong, which is path of seeing is after you go through these 4 discriminative factors. Successfully, which each of them has a very clear signs and omens and demarcations. And when you have gone all of these 4, then the extraordinary seeing, not the conceptual understanding of emptiness, many people are very eloquent about debating about emptiness, but that's only conceptual and intellectual discussion, conversation on the emptiness. But actual experience, subjective meditative experience of emptiness itself, you need to have lots of merit, you need to have a lot of discipline and understanding and faith, and those five faculties and 5 powers are very amazing qualities. Chökyi Pakpa likens those the cart pulled by 1 horse, cart pulled by 2 horse, cart pulled by 3 horse. The analogy, so it's the different level of understanding. So with this we'll conclude here tonight, everyone, because that's a very nice introduction to the path of preparation meditation, from which really begins the path perfection's preparation stage, path perfection. All the things we talked about, the vow of bodhicitta, armoring bodhicitta, practicing paramita, these are just mainly the precepts of the bodhicitta. These are not actual realization of perfection wisdom itself. Of course, you can have perfection wisdom understanding and practice those in no time. Of course, by that time, there's not much practice left. So, thank you, everybody. I shouldn't say we'll stop here. We'll start here. Okay. So we'll do the dedication merits, and So within a week or two, maybe 2 weeks time, we will send you all these translations we have gone through, and with the outline. Actually, I will send you the outline of the whole text, so that'll give you where everything is at. So we will, because the rest of that subjects that we will go through will be easily finished next term. So the fourth term is we say ngapshi gube dodok, means it's the fist of the five fingers. Ocean Padadazene Erenda Mahayana Buddhist Whatever Merera Havaga Meobe Begas de Lavaza Tohoda Mahayana Buddhist Courage Manjushanyode Azama Trabara de Lava Follow Ode Zamba Ajade Dege Ode Mere Mede Zelembo Digida Tebe Vere Noyeranza Vere Spembo Meyedingri Freely without generation. Thank you, everyone.